On this episode of Locked On Angels, we talk about the stomach-turning sweep of the Chicago White Sox to the Angels, and that's gross and disgusting. And you actually had some things to say to these players to prepare them for 2025, and it was actually kind of nice for Fanmail Friday. Plus, we wonder if Shohei Ohtani actually said what the Dodgers broadcaster said that he said about the Angels. You follow? It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with John and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Oh, man, I am so glad you guys decided to tune in today because you know we have a lot to say, and I know you have a lot to say as well about the way this team has fallen apart at the end of the season and embarrassed themselves. And look, we're not pointing the blame at the guys that we're excited about. There's a lot of blame to go around in terms of how they even got here. But we are covering that loss to the White Sox yesterday. The Angels set the franchise record for most losses. And we'll be getting into your comments for Fanmail Friday and your questions as well, including, did Shohei really throw shade at the Angels? I'm not so sure. Mike, I feel like you're not so sure either. But before we continue, I know this is the video side here, but check this out. Look what arrived.
Oh, I got the
mail.
T-shirt. I
Mike,
love it.
Can you describe here? Can we?
Yeah, it's a light blue. It's a light blue. It's a nice off the color light blue, and it's got the characters of John and I on the front of it. I'm throwing a baseball. John's hitting. John is the natural lefty. I'm the natural righty.
Right.
So it's a true to form T-shirt of the Super Halo Bros.
And if anybody is Mario in this equation, I'm the shorter, heavier one, and you're the tall, lanky one. So it makes sense. You're Luigi.
And when I jump, my legs go like this.
Right. And the reason we got these is because of the Ohapi All-Star Bowl. We'll talk about that in a little while. But we are going to be handing out some merch. And, of course, the merch has always been available on our shop. The link is in the episode description if you want to buy some shirts. They support Mike and I. It goes directly to us. So, that's one way you can support the Super Halo Bros. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about this awful way to get swept by the White Sox, Mike. Yeah. Insane.
It was not good, and Logan Ohapi said after the game that he is sick to his stomach, and I feel the same way. It was just not a good game. Now, the White Sox are soon going to be the worst team in baseball history, but the Angels played like the worst team in baseball history. In fact, they're the worst team in Angel history because they have the most losses. They won't get to 100, but that's not because they didn't try. So they've got the most losses, John. This game was a frustrating game to watch, but it was also frustrating because we saw Zach Neto leave with an injury, top of the fourth. He singled, he tried to take second on a wild pitch, and he hurt his shoulder sliding into second base, and he got tagged out, and he came out of the game. Johnny, Angel PR called it shoulder irritation. What's your response to that?
My response to that is the Angels give me irritation.
Yes.
I know they're going to run more tests and stuff. What a stupid way of putting it. Like, it's just, can we call it pain? Can we call it dislocated? Like, you know what I'm saying? But
everything's been irritation the last month and a half.
Yeah, and everything's irritated me for the last 10 years and a half, Mike.
Right. Things fell apart in the fifth, John. Tyler Anderson pitching like we thought he would in the second half. 4 2/3, 4 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, 3 walks, 2 Ks, 82 pitches. And then John Carson Fulmer came in and surrendered 2 more runs. It was a 7-run inning for the White Sox, who have not scored 7 runs in an inning all season long. And they do it against the Angels. And, of course, Kenny Rosenberg comes in, mops it up, finishes the game. John, I know this game's frustrating.
Hit me.
The thing that I really want to address here is the comments of Ron Washington a couple days ago, where he said that this team essentially has not given him Major League Baseball caliber players.
No.
And then he corrected in his mind the comments. I misspoke. And he said yesterday, what I meant is that these players have to be developed into Major League Baseball players. Quite honestly, I don't think it was a misspeak. I don't think it was a slip of the tongue.
No.
It's factual, because these young guys do need to develop into Major League players. And I think Neto and Shohei and Ohtani and Adele are moving in that direction. Don't get me wrong. However, they did nothing on this roster to make this roster competitive with Major League caliber players. So Ron Washington is absolutely correct, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I said I tweeted from Super Halo Bros. I said, deserve.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, you guys are always talking about the future of this team, and you can't have it both ways. Look, when we talk about the future of this team, we're not talking about Brandon Drury. We're not talking about Jack Lopez. We're not even talking about Nico Cavadas or Eric Wagaman, even though Wagaman's been nice. We're not talking about those guys. We're talking about the guys who have gotten the Angels away from the 100-loss season, Mike, and that's your Joe Adells and your Nolan Shonowells, who also didn't play yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
We're talking about your Luis Rengifos, and we're talking about Neto and Ohtani and some of the young pitching like Jose Soriano and future stars like Caden Dana. We're talking about those guys. Jack Kohanowitz. We're talking about them. We're not talking about all these guys who have fallen off. They've either fallen off or shouldn't have been here in the first place. Mike, please tell me what grudge this team had against Luis Guillorme, who is 100 times better than Jack Lopez on defense, even on offense.
Yeah.
And why does Lopez get the opportunity and Guillorme gets DFA'd to another team? It boggles my mind. But that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about when we say this team deserves all the scrutiny. And I'm not pointing to the future as these guys deserve it, because the future of this team is bright because of your Ohtani's and Netos and Shonowells and Danas. But we have been relying on these rosters with these guys like Aire Adrianza played a bunch of games, right? And we got depth that we didn't even use, like Jake Marisnik, and then we use Willie Calhoun for 36% of the DH starts. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if that's the future of the team, then by all means criticize. But for them to end up where they did this season is because of the guys who, stink up the joint, like Brandon Drury or Anthony Rendon or Mike Trout can't play all season long. And so all of that to say, there's nothing critical here toward the young players who busted their freaking butts all season long. I feel bad that Logan Ohtani feels bad, and it's not his fault that they're in the position that they're in. Certainly not. I know he struggled the last month and a half, but he's also caught pretty much every game except for 5 that he's been in. And so you put that kind of pressure on somebody, you put that kind of task onto somebody, of course he's going to feel it at the end of the season. But by no means is the future of this team Nico Cavadas and maybe Campero is a backup at some point. Yeah. I know he's been great in the minor leagues, but these are not the guys that you talk about when you talk about the future. The future, most of those guys haven't been on the field because of injury or one thing or another. And it sucks, but that's the way this cookie crumbled at the end of the season.
Yeah. And we knew it would get ugly, and a lot of fans knew that it would get ugly. We just didn't think it would get.
This is ugly.
Yeah, we didn't think it'd get this ugly, but it got ugly, right? And the reality is that they don't have a very healthy team, and that's part of the reason why they did get swept. They just don't have a healthy team. However, Tyler Anderson and his performance, completely unacceptable.
Right,
completely unacceptable, and it was terrible. It was worse than Jose Suarez start the night before. I mean, that's when you know that you're in trouble, right? And I get Tyler Anderson is a pit bull. He's a bulldog. He wants to go out there and compete. But this second half, he has completely been figured out. And we're going to keep hitting that nail on the head, man, because that's the thing that we were concerned about. That's the thing that everydayers were concerned about. Angel fans were concerned about, that was going to happen. And he has been completely figured out. And quite honestly, I'm nervous for next season. They're going to have him around if they don't trade him. And so if he starts next season, he's been figured out unless he does something different, right? And he did from offseason to offseason moving into this year. He did something different in the first half of the season. He was able to fool all of the people that he was pitching against and put up some really good numbers. But again, the expected numbers were an indicator that it wasn't going to last very long. And his performance yesterday was pathetic. It was just completely pathetic. You're supposed to be the best and most veteran starter in this rotation, and you can't get the Chicago White Sox out? Yeah. That's terrible.
Now, when you put it that way, when you say Jose Suarez, who did have a better start than him, that's saying a lot, Mike. That's saying a lot. And look, I'll end it with this, and we'll move on. But of course, we'll be getting into this conversation more because, you know, this weekend is the last series. It's at home against the Texas Rangers. But here's what I'll say. The same energy that fans have brought and non-fans of the Angels have brought to the table in terms of, well, you're wasting Mike Trout. You wasted Shohei Ohtani. You know, I'd even venture to say that you've wasted the young stars this year in terms of Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe. Now, I know we have them for several more years. I know that this was a growth year, a development year, but bring that same energy because this team was not built to compete. And bring that same energy for Ron Washington, too. He's going to go down as a manager with the worst record in franchise history. And I hate that for him because people are only going to look at the numbers. They're going to look at it from a 1,000-mile view from the top and not look at the fact that somebody like Zach Neto doesn't have the season that he does, if not for Ron Washington. Joe Adell doesn't have the season, the defensive miracle that he had this season, if not for Ron Washington. And Joe Adell said as much. He said Ron Washington is the reason why I've gotten better in the outfield. He said it to the LA Times interviewer. And so bring that energy of what you brought when, they didn't put a good team around Trout. They didn't put a good team around Ohtani. Well, they didn't put around a good team for Ron Washington or these young guys either. I know most of the young guys make up this team, but when you lose your quote unquote headliners and all you're left with are these young guys figuring it out and developing and working their first season, you kind of hang them out to dry. And it's a shame that this is going to be the narrative around this season. Mike, I hope that these young guys come out and they come out swinging next year, but I don't have a lot of confidence. And sadly, neither does Ron Washington, that this team is going to fill the gaps that you and I spoke about, at least with an expensive player. Hopefully they address in the ways that Perry has done well in the past, you know, making the trades or signing the guys that they need to fill the gaps. But man, it really stinks that this is going to be the narrative around this team, and some of these young guys have to wear it. And then, you know, Brandon Drury and Jack Lopez and those guys, they can ride off into the sunset and not have to think about it. And it just really makes me sick at the end of the day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the Rangers at home at the Big A, 6:38 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on Sirius XM with the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we asked you, what would you say to this team right now? And some of you responded with some motivation for 2025. We'll get into all of that coming right up.
This episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. Love that. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC.
This is the Lockdown Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and everydayers, you are invited, of course, to join us at the Ohtani All-Star Bowl Saturday, October 5th, a week from tomorrow. Michael, can you believe it? It's going to be at Cal Bowl in Lakewood. Of course, Mike and I are going to be there with some Super Halo Bros merch for our everydayers, just for you. And we're raising money for Corey's Promise, a nonprofit that walks alongside families whose children are dealing with pediatric cancer. They help offset the financial burden that comes along with that and supports them in the ways that they need. A very special thing for Logan, a special fundraising event for Logan, and Corey's Promise means a lot to him. You can get your tickets by visiting the link in the episode description. And when you get your ticket, you can get $50 off your ticket by using our code BROS, BROS, at checkout. We are so excited to see you there. So come join us at the Ohtani All-Star Bowl on Saturday, October 5th at Cal Bowl in Lakewood.
It's Fanmail Friday, and so it's nice to be able to talk with our everydayers. And we asked you at the end of yesterday's show, hey, what would you say to these players right now? And so got some great responses. Torrid on YouTube, by the way, shout out Torrid. He's been there. One of the guys been there since the beginning, so we appreciate you. Here's what he would say. I really think you've done a great job. I know the record may not show it, but I appreciate the hard work, the hard knocks that you've taken and continued forward. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we will thrive in the future. I believe in you guys, and if we just stay positive, we'll eventually get to where we want to be. John, are you motivated by Torrid's words to the Angels?
You know, I really appreciate the thought that Rome wasn't built in a day. And in fact, I'm actually hopping on Baseball Reference here for a second, Mike, because I just want to take a look at the Royals, because look, they are in the playoff hunt right now.
Yeah. And
if we go back to last year, let's find their record from 2023. Oh, 56-106, Michael, a 346 win percentage. And you know what's funny about that? They didn't make a lot of earth-shattering moves over the offseason. And so when Ron Washington spoke about the idea that they aren't going to make big splashes on the level of a Mike Trout contract or a Rendon contract, well, that's certainly not what the Royals did. They just supplemented their needs. And now here they are, 80. I think actually they won yesterday. So it should be 85-74. They're fighting for a wild card spot. Bobby Witt Jr. is lighting up the scoreboard, of course. I think about the Rangers, Mike, and I go back. Let's see. They signed Marcus Semien and Corey Seager over one off season. It was the 21-22 off season. And you know what they did in 2022? They went 68-94, Michael. Ooh. And the year after that, they won the World Series with a 90-72 record. So it just goes to show that I think Torrid is right, that Rome wasn't built in a day. And I don't think you need to buy the most expensive players to build Rome. Would it be nice? Of course. Would I like to see Corbin Burns in an Angels uniform? Yeah. And if it costs $30 million a year or whatever it's going to cost, the Angels can do it.
Right.
Will they do it? I highly doubt it. But the thing is, we never know what we're going to get with this team. We have always thought the penchant that Artie Moreno has for spending big on free agents, well, it's always the ones they don't necessarily need. And there are much better directions to go. A good example of that is he signed Josh Hamilton over Torrey Hunter and bringing Torrey Hunter back. And you could have had Torrey Hunter and probably Zach Greinke that season, but instead you spent all your money on Josh Hamilton, and look how that worked out. So all of that to say, I'm not concerned about what this offseason looks like unless they don't do anything. I think that would be absolutely ridiculous. There are very clear issues with this team. We've highlighted them. We talked about how this team has a supporting cast and they need difference makers. And there are some great difference makers on the free agent market, but also they might be really expensive. And I know Wash said that that's probably going to be the case, that they don't get those guys. But again, you think about what the Royals did over the offseason and how they turned it around. The Rangers did get their splashy free agents and still needed a year to turn it around. So I'm not very concerned. I really think that Rome wasn't built in a day. is a really good way to put it.
Give me this. Don't give me this garbage that he's a good businessman. That's good narrative out there, right? Because as you're talking, I'm just thinking to myself, like, the Dodgers have probably made all of Shohei Ohtani's money back. And if the Angels
times 10,
if the Angels go out and actually spend some big money on a few different players, don't give me that garbage that they won't be able to make it back, because you know that stadium will be jam packed. It will be full. I'll be there. You'll be there, right? Like, that stadium will be the stadium that it was in the early 2000s. And so that's just the thing about Artie, is that, he's a good businessman. He's going to make money. Dude, he doesn't know how to make good money. He might know how to make more money than he spends, but he doesn't know how to actually make good money, where he invests in this team and then they end up being an incredible team that people, actually want to see. That would be a whole lot of fun, and that would actually raise the resources. So don't give me this garbage anymore that he's a good businessman. I'm talking to myself, actually, because I've said that out loud before too. So I'm off of that train.
I think you said it this week, actually.
I know. I'm off of that train now.
It was in service of a better argument. That's what I'll say. Yeah. Sydney Scott on YouTube said, I think what I would say to this team is to finish out the season, but then hang it up in your closet like a sweater that didn't quite fit.
You can tell she's an author.
Yeah, exactly. You keep it around because there are lessons to be learned, but you don't put it on and let it bring you down. Don't wear the failures of 2024 once the season ends, but instead learn from them, learn from the successes, and build from there. Think about the future and what you want to make possible in 2025 and go for it. And while you're at it, get out of your head and go do something mindlessly fun in the offseason. You may not think you need that or you've earned it, but you have, especially Ohtani, Neto, Shonowell, and Ward, because they've been showing up almost every day, every game, dragging this team to the finish line. What do you say, Mike?
This is exactly what this team has prepared themselves for, to be better. They've prepared themselves through some of these lowest of lows. And whenever you talk about teams that have actually reached the pinnacle and are moving in that direction, and you just pointed it out, there's always the lowest of lows. So we're swimming in that right now, and it's super frustrating. But what Sydney says here is so appropriate, because they need to go, okay, we checked that off of our list. We suffered through this, because some of the greatest moments come just before or just after suffering, right? You're struggling beforehand, and then you hit the pinnacle of whatever it might be. And so that's what I think each Torrid and Sydney have said. I think our everydayers feel that way. And that's how I feel, Johnny, because this is a situation where they have to really have those growing pains so that they can learn and mature and apply it to next season and the seasons to follow.
This is the rebuild, everybody.
Yeah.
This is a dishonest rebuild, because they've been trying to sell us that this team was going to be competitive, And if you're a fan of this show and you've been an everydayer with us since before the season started, you know that we all knew that wasn't true. And this has turned out to be a rebuild beyond a rebuild, because the fact is they've hit this rock bottom, but they needed this. Like I said the other day, they need 2024 to happen. They needed it to happen this way. These young guys needed it to go down this way, because that's what a rebuild is. Yeah. And now they're in a position to have a really good percentage in the draft lottery to hit the number one spot, Mike. They're sitting at about 18%, 18.03% in terms of where they'll land in the lottery. So even if they don't get number one, they have a good odds for 2. They've got good odds for 3. And I think that that's really important for this team. Ted Tobin on YouTube said, I am an everydayer, listen to the podcast, and wanted to thank you guys for your brand of loyalty combined with honesty. Thank you, Ted. That means a lot. Okay. I love Wash. I think he's proving why he is the best number 2 in baseball. As a motivator and a fundamentals teacher, there's truly no one better, but when it comes to the X's and O's and the day-to-day decisions, I think that he isn't the man for the job. When this team is ready to win, do you really think he will be the manager? I hope Perry talks Washington to staying with the team, but he will have to hand the reins over to a more modern baseball thinker. Mike, what do you say?
I think that this is why they brought him in. They brought him in because they knew that they weren't going to be great, even though they said they were going to be great. They brought him in because they were going to, not give him the best players, even though Ron said they're going to run down the West, and then he finally admitted that he didn't have the best players. I think they brought him in to be a developer, and that's why it was a 2-year deal. And I don't think that he'll be the manager when this team is actually good. I think that he'll be the guy that helps them to be good. I would anticipate that next year, depending on what they do in the offseason, they might sniff around 500, and we'll be ecstatic if they sniff 500, right? And I think that that's because of the investment of Ron Washington. But I think Ted's absolutely right. Some of his X's and O's decisions have not been the best decision. Even at the end of the year, we talked about Kohanowitz being taken out and not going 8 innings. Like, that just is, it's silly, right?
Yeah.
And that decision is dumb. The fight for the squeeze play was dumb all season long, right? And so I don't think he'll be the guy that leads them to the mountaintop, one, because of his age, two, because of his contract. But it'd be great to have him around and be somebody that could really influence this team. I don't know if it'd be on the coaching staff, maybe an advisor, but I think he's somebody that could really help this team continue to develop. And that's why he was brought in.
Yeah, he's got one more year. I believe there's a extension option for the team, but Perry's around at least 2 more. I think Ron will be around at least 2 more. I think that the timing lines up, and I think that Ted is right. I think eventually he'll hand the reins over, but at this point, he's who this team has needed.
Yeah.
Not reliant on the success on the field, but the success in the development that he's brought to the major league club, especially with the young guys this season.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. You can explore those U.S. cities that you've always secretly wanted to learn more about with Booking.com. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more. They have just what you need to find your perfect stay, including staying in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball competition stadium cuisine. And with Booking.com, you can find the right stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the United States, you can go incognito to watch your favorite team in your baseball rival city, no matter what team you're rooting for this postseason. Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you versus the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll right into your wallet. Right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So here's what a player projection lineup might look like. What do you say, Mike?
And I changed the names just for you.
Oh, just so I didn't have to laugh at them. Yeah, yes. And I like what you said here. How about Brandon Ayuk for more than 90 receiving yards? I'd take that. Brock Purdy? Oh, come on. Purdy, baby. For more than 263 pass yards. Josh Allen for less than 240 passing yards. And maybe CeeDee Lamb for more than 96 receiving yards. And you're done. That's all you got to do. So download the Prize Picks apps today. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even have to win. So maybe you don't listen to our picks that you might take this weekend. You don't even have to win. You can get $50 in a $50 bonus guaranteed when you play $5. Prize Picks, run your game.
Our friends over at Foul Territory tweeted a clip from the Dodgers broadcast where Joe Davis said that Ohtani told the Dodgers hitting coaches that he found himself trying too hard with runners in scoring position early this season because he was trained to think that it was their only shot due to his time with the Angels. And then, John, you received a text message from Scott Brunn.
Scott sent me the link. He said, "I'm just the messenger, so don't get mad at me." And so we had a good back and forth about that. And then so we tweeted about it, and then Rodolfo Vasquez on Twitter wondered if we could address it on today's Fanmail Friday. So yes, Rodolfo, we're gonna do that right now. Mike, did Shohei say that? Do you think he said that?
I don't think that he said it in terms of throwing shade.
Sure.
I don't think he said it in terms of, and what was the specific quote? Trained to think. I think what Shohei was communicating was what's a reality in Anaheim and why somebody like Logan O'Hoppe is struggling. That this might be our only opportunity to score a run, and so we got to come through right now. And John, it would make sense. I know that we get smashed and dumped on every time we talk about Shohei struggling with runners in scoring position. But this is evidence that he admits that he struggled with the Angels. I get that he went 3 for 4 and 75 RBIs in a game, but in the moments that matter late in the game, he really struggled with coming through. That's not saying he's not great. That's not throwing shade at him. That's just asking him to do one more thing, which the Angels needed. So what he's saying is, this is a reality, and I struggled with that reality, and now I'm on a professional baseball team with professional players,
right?
And I'm not the only one that has to come through,
right?
I feel a little bit more relaxed because I've got Mookie in front of me and I got Freddie behind me. Of course you're going to relax, right? And on the Angels, these young guys probably feel that pressure. You better come through because we're not going to have this opportunity again because Taylor Ward's going to ground into a double play.
Hey, don't shade Taylor Ward because he's been the only one doing anything.
He has been, for this team. Brandon Drury's going to ground into a double play.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to rewind it back. Take that, rewind it back, Mike. Did he even say it? Well, to me, the Dodgers broadcasters always seem to find a little way to throw some shade at the Angels. And there was that whole thing that the radio broadcasters said that the radar gun was juiced for Ben Joyce, that he didn't actually throw 105.5. I've never seen a human being throw 105.5 and that sort of thing. But also, let's get this straight. Mike, has Shohei ever been mistranslated or misunderstood?
Yeah, right.
People always get his comments 100% right. They never get the wrong information or they never mistranslate or just kidding. Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, that's me being sarcastic. When has anybody ever quoted Shohei correctly or accurately? And that was a whole saga through his whole time with the Angels. Everybody was saying, well, he said it this way. He didn't say it this way. And so to hear this, first of all, he's always gracious. He's never thrown shade, even when the media has tried to get him to do it. And so, yeah, maybe he did have this conversation with his hitting coach, and maybe somebody interpreted it that way. But, Mike, there's lots of Ohtani fans and even some Dodger fans on social media saying he never said that for the record. Yeah. That was never said. And I would trust, especially our friends from Japan who still interact with us saying, no, probably didn't happen.
Right.
And there's no record of it either. And so again, I look at the evidence here. Broadcasters always like to throw shade.
Yeah.
And again, when has anybody ever stated what Shohei said correctly in the last in the last 10 years, right?
And we get it. The Angels suck.
Yeah.
The Angels suck.
That's the thing.
Like Joe Davis, punch up. Don't punch down.
Yeah.
Yes, we get it. We have 96 freaking losses. We get it. They've sucked 4 years. We get it. What you're not saying anything brilliant or new or exciting. Like, you're a good broadcaster, Joe Davis. So broadcast your team that's winning. Why in the world are you even spending any time thinking about the Angels? Why are you even talking about that? And why do you have to make it as a slight? Like, we're on the ground and we've been shot, and you're looking at us and you're like, hey, want a couple more bullets? I mean, that's literally what this is, right?
The Simpsons meme, the stop, he's already dead.
Yes.
That's the Angels, man.
Yeah.
And so, for that's what I think is silly, especially in baseball, punching down. And it happens all the time. It happens among fan bases. And that's why I always get into it with other fan bases, because it's like, yeah, you are punching down. You're punching down against the Angels.
Right.
And you know what? Someday,
we're turtles on our back.
someday the roles will be flipped, because that's the way sports goes. And there are people in for a rude awakening.
We're letting the expletives fly.
I'm just saying, there's lots of teams out there where their team's on top, and Rudy Poo for you. That's so exciting for you. But you just wait, because maybe you've never experienced it in your short baby infancy fandom, that the tables will be turned, my friend. Oh, how the turntables, right?
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. Sully is as salty as we are, and you're going to love him. He's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and he's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Again, get your tickets to the Yohapi All-Star Bowl. It's coming up pretty quick. You can get those tickets in the episode description with the link there. Get some merch and use our promo code BROS, BROS, at checkout for $50 off your ticket. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
Johnny, Monday on Locked On Angels is going to be a day of gratitude because it is the end of the season, and we're just going to be grateful that they can't hurt us anymore. We're going to recap the weekend series against the Rangers, and then we'll have some teasers and some conversation about what the offseason could potentially be like for the Halos. Join us Monday for a day of gratitude on Locked On Angels.
Thank you. All right, friends, we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Grateful, thankful, excited. It's over.
It's over. Mercifully, it's over. Thank God.